Welcome, Strategy Battle Gamers, to another GBXL YouTube video. You're here.
What? Well, he said we needed better outfits.
That was like one comment. I think we're all right.
No, yours is pretty bad.
Is it?
Yeah, I think we should change.
Yeah, it's probably better not to wind them up on week 2.
Yeah. Turn that off. We'll come back.
Yeah,
we'll
start again when we come back. Yeah.
All right.
Hang on. I think that's off.
Babe, you filming? Oh, that's funny. I thought you were filming. Oh, it is on. Welcome, Strategy Battle Gamers, to another YouTube video. You're here with Emma, your YouTube host for this evening, and I thought I would talk to you about painting technique. I know that's something that you're very keen to learn about. So have a look at those. Oh, I'll get my hand behind there. So look, if I can focus that, can you see?
What are you doing?
Talking about painting technique.
Talking to who?
The YouTubers.
It's not even on, Emma.
But I wanted to tell them about my nails and the paints.
We haven't got long. Can we please just do the video, please?
But it's really hard to do white.
No, I know it's hard to do white, but please, we need to.
Look, and I've even been reading White Dwarf. Yeah, I know all about Nagash. He is 1,000 points.
He's not even in Lord of the Rings, Emma. All right? Please, we've only got an hour to do this.
But I want to be in the video.
I know you want to be in the video, but
It doesn't have to be a video.
Emma, please.
Okay, bye.
Believe it.
So what was that? That was a pal.
Not talking, just video talk. Anyway,
Yeah.
you look better, man.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, you look better.
So, ready to go?
Yeah.
Cool.
Should we start?
Is that? I think it's still on.
Ah.
Alright, come on.
Shoot it through.
Yeah. Welcome, Strategy Battle Gamers, to another GBXL YouTube video. You're here with your host, GBXL Damien.
And Tom Harrison.
Tom Harrison. Woo! Yep. And welcome to episode 2 of The Palantir. I like that.
Yeah.
Keeping that.
Yeah.
Good. So, yes. We're here with episode 2. It's Friday. We've tried to tart up our outfits a bit to hopefully that'll go down well.
Yeah.
And we will be kind of running down the same sort of formula that we did last week. So the first thing that we wanted to do, as we said we would, is kind of review the comments, I guess. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think thank you so much for all the really great comments. Some everything we wanted in there, really, just stuff on the first video that you liked, that you didn't like. Yeah,
it was really encouraging to hear like everything that you seem to enjoy the show. There was a lot of really good feedback for us, so thank you very much. It really is appreciated, and it kind of makes us look forward to doing this second episode and many more, hopefully. So, a bit of a comment review then.
Yeah.
Our topics that we discussed. The first stuff was about the kind of films.
Yeah.
So, anyone have anything of note?
Yeah, I mean, I think the general consensus was people wanted to have more Bayonne in the second film.
On the comments, this is his dude David Whittaker, always tea drinking. Yeah, Bayonne was popular, and we think there'll be a lot more Bayonne in there.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I might have this wrong, forgive me if I do. I think it was Billy Fitzmaurice who, at the tournament at the weekend, said that another scene that's probably going to be in there is the dwarf party at Laketown.
Oh, because both is under the table.
Both's under the table.
And then you never see it. You
don't know
why he's there.
No, it's just Thorin turns around and looks very proud as the master kind of welcomes him in, and then suddenly cut to both of being drunk. Yeah. And it does feel a bit like the something missing there. So maybe there's a kind of nighttime scene there, and where you see them perhaps get their Laketown outfits. Something like that. So that could be in it. But
that was about it.
I think that was about it. A few people were saying you can see Thrain the Broken on Google Images, which is the little clips from the trailers. So that's almost certainly going to be in there. But that was cool. Yeah. Yeah. So glad you enjoyed that.
Yeah. And so I guess we can just run through a few things we commented on last week in terms of the model sides of things. So the special strikes and the bash, just what people responded to.
Yeah. I think One Good Riddance, I believe it was, said that it was an issue. Yeah. Like he's had it be an issue in his game.
Yeah.
and this is really itching. I'm gonna D bow tie. I don't think a bow tie is my goal.
No, we'll have to think of something else for next week.
Yours looks great though.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll try and you better outfit next week. Yeah, he was saying that it had been an issue. I think he actually had a bit of a conversation with GBXGR James about saying it, and just saying, I don't know, that in his gaming group the order of strikes had been an issue.
Yeah, and I guess it can be if people are waiting around for each other to get a slight advantage. But I think it was Billy again who had a comment that was just, you know, he just declared with his Goblin Town at the start of the game, you know,
Yes.
I'm just going to say I'm going to do this special strike that the model has every time, so assume I'm doing it.
I think Owen does that as well.
Yeah, he does. I think with Goblin Town it's quite easy because you're always wanting to special strike.
They're always low fight value. I had a good one actually at the Longbottom Carnival where I was playing George Seymour's Harad, and he had Mahud, and he went, "What do you think they can do then?" And they've got, do you know their weapons? They've got like a stick with a kind of tooth thing on it, and we were like, I don't know, what is it? And I think we eventually said like piercing strike because it seemed like a stabby thing, but yeah, it's a weird little weapon.
But at least that's quite nice of him to be, rather than be like, you know, this is an axe.
Yeah, well,
you know, a pick.
George,
he's like, what do you think this is?
Yeah, George is, George is that kind of player. He's a nice bloke. You know, he's in it for the right reasons, so that works.
Yeah.
So Billy was definitely saying that if you just declare all out, which is quite easy to do with Goblin Town, then it's not an issue.
Yeah, and I guess that's very easy for your opponent as well.
Yeah, but then obviously what that does show, I guess, is just that there is a difference of opinion of it.
Yeah.
We didn't say that actually, that we want to reiterate.
Yeah.
That everything we say over the next hour is, of course, as ever, just our opinions. So.
And it may not just be our opinions; it might be your opinion and my opinion separately.
Yeah. We don't always agree.
No. And Jamie definitely doesn't agree on the to the death thing, so that's one tick off.
So yeah, please don't think that we're trying to preach or tell you that this is the way it is. We're just kind of hopefully having a bit of a chat.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I think that was the general consensus on special strikes.
Yeah, I mean,
although it wasn't a consensus.
No, it was the consensus is there is no
consensus. But nice to hear that kind of you saw the different sides of the argument. And then Billy also had a counter opinion on the bash issue. Yeah.
He was saying because you can piercing strike the mount, or the rider, more specifically the rider, that why can't you just bash the rider?
And you can feint against the rider.
You can feint against the rider, so why wouldn't you bash?
Indeed. So
which is a good point.
It is a good point, and I think the only argument is that the whole model gets knocked prone.
Yeah.
Like the model gets knocked prone, which means it affects the mount, which means if you're knocking it prone, you're clearly hit. If you're knocking the mount prone, you must be knocking
the whole thing.
I don't know, but it is a grey area.
Yeah.
And that, as of yet, might then need potentially FAQing of some sort.
Yeah.
So yeah, perhaps the community FAQ, and we will raise the issue of the community FAQ later.
Yeah.
We're going to actually
we'll come on to that.
Talk about that in one of our topics for this week.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of comments about our 3 topics.
Yeah, that's kind of the roundup of everything that went on last week.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks so much for the comments, and any more, and we'll try to bring up anything that you say that's interesting about what we've brought up in the show.
It's probably worth saying that it won't necessarily always be this way, but it's actually currently Tuesday evening.
Yeah.
And we will probably be recording this every week on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I would say.
Potentially Monday.
Potentially Monday, or a Monday.
For probably when Lily's out that week.
Well, it will be around then, and so if you want to raise an issue, bear in mind the show goes out on a Friday, you really want to comment arguably by sort of 5 PM Monday UK time. Obviously we will respond to all comments by the time we record it.
Yeah.
But try and comment on it by about then, and we should get in. But yeah, today's Tuesday, so anyone posting on the first video from Wednesday onwards, we won't get to. Sorry.
Yeah. How about when we start recording the show, we just pop a post in, and then people can do newest first, and they'll see whether
that is a brilliant
we've
idea.
Started recording. We just put starting recording.
Yeah, we're doing that.
People can see it, so they're not wasting. Well, still comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just realise that we're not ignoring it.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. We'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that going forward. So yeah, thank you for all the feedback. It's really good. We were doing it for the first time. We didn't know how many people would interact.
No.
But it's great to see that there was a lot of comments on there, and some really good discussions, some really friendly and helpful comments. So thank you very much. Thanks for the praise of like my dad and my wife and stuff. It's like they're just not interested in it. So and they're unlikely to get involved.
I'm glad I didn't have to go under that sheet.
No, I know. Yeah, absolutely. Emma was baking under it. She was under it in the first video as well for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Trooper.
Yeah, absolutely. Were there any other comments we wanted to raise, or are we ready to press on?
Yeah, though some of the pressing on is to do with some comments where people have suggested discussions that we talk about, and we've had some good ones.
Absolutely. The other thing I realised that hasn't come up in here when we were talking about what we might discuss is your list, because it was a different video. This is the perfect time to talk about that.
It is indeed.
It's another topic. So we also made the Longbottom Carnival preview vid. And in that, Tom didn't have a list a few days before the event. And so we asked you guys to essentially kind of pick him a list or suggest a theme. And they did.
Yeah.
And the winner was?
A Helm's Deep army. So there was kind of a mix of ideas for a Helm's Deep army that different people suggested. So there's the whole 3 hunters theme with Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, or Aragorn, Theoden, Gamling, etc. Haldir as well, but there's also an all-mounted approach where you could go...
The ride out.
Yeah, the ride out or the ride in. So there's Gandalf the White coming down with Éomer as well. Yeah. Maybe not at 600 points getting Gandalf the White in.
700.
700 points.
It's not James Broad. Did you hear about that? You not know about this?
Did he turn up with 600 points?
No, the other way. He turned up to Throne of Skulls with 700 points.
Oh.
Yeah.
What did he drop?
He didn't drop anything. He played Throne of Skulls at 700 points. He's had his league points removed by Mick.
Really?
Yeah.
These GW stuff.
I know, absolutely. But yeah, he thought it was a 700 point tournament. He said apparently on his list it said 700 points at the bottom. And so he showed it to every one of his opponents. And
well, James is a really genuine guy, as you'll see if you see the results from the tournament as well.
He's absolutely. He's very magnanimous.
Yeah,
People keep giving him trophies and I keep taking them away. But it's just one of those complete brain melts, I guess, that he thought it was 700.
Yeah, equally he looked at other people's opponents' list and it said 600 points at the bottom. and maybe he was just thinking, well, you could just bung a shade in.
Chuck a shade in,
So yeah, back onto the Helm's Deep list.
Yes. So thank you to the guys who suggested that. Yeah. There was a couple of other options. Someone suggested Defenders Ministerial. Did you see that?
Yeah, I like that one.
Which you did at Mansfield.
Yeah, I've already done that one. So that was Gandalf the White, Merry, Pippin, Denethor, Theoden and some riders, that kind of feel. But yeah, I've done that, and it really needs to be about 1,000 points because there's so many heroes.
Yeah, that's the same problem with the Helm's Deep one though, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a problem in the end trying to decide which one to go for. So originally I wanted to take Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli, and I tried knocking something together, had a couple of practice games and got absolutely smashed because I only had about 20 models max because they're so expensive to take. And I actually decided that I really wanted to take Theoden and Gamling because you don't really see them at tournaments. You do see a lot of Legolas and Gimli. So in the end, my list was Aragorn in armour, Helm's Deep version, Haldir and some Gladrim with the Gladrim banner bearer out of the Heroes of Helm's Deep set.
Got ya. Yeah.
And Theoden with some just generic foot soldiers of Rohan, quite a lot with throwing spear. Courtesy of Damien, actually. I don't have enough Rohan painted to take 2 full warbands on foot. So Damien very kindly helped me out, but I did get quite a few offers actually. People who'd watched the video just kind of Facebook messaged me saying, if you need a hand with getting any models together, this is what I've got.
Oh, that's nice.
So, people were preparing for all eventualities. If I got asked to do a Dol Amroth army, people were prepared to give me Dol Amroth. So, yeah, I can't think of everyone who sent it. But
maybe going forward, it's not about picking your army, it's about lending you an army.
Yeah, lending me an army.
Like Tom Harrison will play your army for you and win you most sporting or something. Like, give him a challenge.
But yeah, big thanks to Ed Ball and Kieran Street for those for those offers. And Gamling was my other hero, and he had more Rohan on foot. So yeah,
it's interesting that you say the 3 hunters and you got absolutely smashed. When anyone who's watched our Longbottom preview will know I came up against Kieran Street's 3 hunters and got absolutely smashed with my tournament filth.
Yeah,
So
I did play Callum.
maybe you were playing it wrong.
I did play Callum in the practice game, and what happened in the
Callum
game
also
against Callum?
smashed me.
Okay.
They've seen a nice long video about the in-depth ways I got smashed over the weekend.
Okay.
So, was it a fun list to use?
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Well done, GBHL community.
Yeah. It's a different tactical challenge because Rohan are a very different force to, say, Elves or Gondor that I would traditionally take to a tournament. The lack of spear support is absolutely infuriating at times. You'd get stuck in a battle line, and I've got some Elves. I had about 7 spearmen in my entire army with the Elves, and it's just infuriating when you get stuck with a line and then you can't use your models because they just can't do anything. So
that's getting dangerously close to
the Palantir. So that was tricky, but the Elven banner was absolutely incredible because, I mean, the advantage of having Elves and Rohan was that I can chuck some Fight 5 in there, which is really useful. And the banner as well just really helped me to win fights. And I played against Larry Miller, who had a beautifully converted dwarf army. He had essentially gone one step further than Damien's Erebor dwarves from the Grimhammers and said, I'm going to do an entire army out of Grimhammers. So he had Durin's folk as well, based on Grimhammer. So he had some Khazad Guard in there, a captain in there, Iron Guard in there, and he'd gone to absolutely painstaking effort to take Keelian Feely's weapons and put them over. So I mean,
I was saying in the tournament review video that me and Jamie did, I voted for him for best army.
Yeah, I did as well. Yeah, it was super
well done.
But well done to Josh Meads as well. His was
Josh
really cool dwarves.
It's a cool thing.
So yeah, sorry, I was going to say about the game before. I just went off on a tangent about his army. I think it was about 3 turns in and I'd killed about 9 dwarves and he hadn't killed anything. And it's because I had the banner and 5/5 in there and he just didn't win enough fights, and when he did, his rolling was appalling. He had Thorin shielding in one round and got a 4 highest.
6 dice, yeah. I was saying I played, in the last game I played David Reed and he had Wood Elves shielding with a banner and you just can't, it's 3 dice, you can't do it. But obviously not a tournament review, but briefly, how did the list get on?
List did really well. Yeah. I took 4 victories and 2 losses. But
4 victories and 2 losses?
Yeah.
With fluff. And I got 3 wins and 3 losses with filth. I mean, you know, me and Jamie chatted a bit about this in the tournament review, but it just goes to show how much is about the player and how much is not about the force. So I mean, well done.
The force goes some way. My 2 losses were against Jamie, but actually I think he was pretty relaxed about it.
Both against Jamie?
No, 1 against Jamie.
1 Jamie. Right.
I think he was quite relaxed until it got to the last quarter of an hour, and then he realised, oh, actually I could lose, and started actually being a bit more serious in the game. I also lost to Callum, but I didn't get smashed.
I think we may have outed you as the mother of all chokes.
Yeah. I wouldn't class myself as a bad loser, but I think it was pretty evident on my face that I was fairly mortified when Aragorn ran away. And I think even Callum was like,
"It's not how you want to win a game, is it?"
Man, it was an amazing game. It was so tense all the way through, and I think we got to about half an hour left, and I was sensing that I went into the game and thought, he's going to absolutely annihilate me. With about half an hour left, I thought, I'm in this. I could win it, and I was getting a bit like, trying to move around quickly, getting a bit agitated. And Callum was like, Tom, calm down. Got plenty of time. It's like, alright. But yeah, fantastic weekend. But yeah, you've done the tournament review.
We have. So yeah, but always good to
thanks
hear
so much for providing me with the theme for my fluff.
Maybe we should do that all the time going forward.
Yeah.
Do you know what you're taking to Stockport?
No.
Well, maybe you got a week. You got a month.
Build me an army.
Worthy of Stockport. You've got 4 weeks to pick Tom as 600-point army.
Yeah, 600 points this time.
James.
With fluff.
600. So well done that.
Cheers.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So that was an unexpected topic that I knew we should talk about but forgot. So what is our next topic for this week?
So it was brought up in the comments that with GW kind of kind of slowing down the interest compared to the Lord of the Rings years, and obviously with the third film coming up, do we think that the community, as in the channel, the Facebook group, everything that goes with it, people really wanting to be involved in the hobby, do you think that will continue after the third film, especially when GW start rolling down and making it more into a specialist game or whatever it is they're going to do? Which is a really good question.
It's an interesting question, and it does get discussed a lot. And we just thought that was quite a good question to pick up on and talk about. So perhaps going forwards, if you guys want a topic, suggest them, and maybe that's how we pick what we talk about. The kind of things that you want to hear our opinions on or whatever, a discussion about. That's what we'll talk about. So it's a huge question. It's probably worth a caveat again, only our opinions, and often people get accused of being very negative when this conversation comes up, that why talk about it? And so you have to put that perhaps to the side for now. Why talk about it? Because someone suggested it. At some point in the future, this game won't be available anymore to buy in shops.
Yes.
And at that point, whether it be a year or 5 years or 25 years, will people keep playing it? Yeah? So please don't say that we're being unreasonably negative or anything like that. It's just, at some point it'll be an issue. What do you think?
Well, I kind of say from my point of view first that, I've invested so much time and energy into the Hobbit. I love painting the models, I love playing with them. And, I can't really see, just because it's not in the shops, that I'm not going to play it anymore. The caveat with that is that I've kind of I've got a few armies outside of what I've painted now, ready to be painted.
Yes.
So it's not as if everything closed down now, tomorrow, I wouldn't be able to do anymore.
Yeah, you've got the huge backlog.
Yeah.
And that, I did a similar thing recently. I don't know if you've seen the unboxing the box video. That's part of my backlog. That I bought everything I wanted while I had a bit of money.
Yeah.
But I already want more, as we might discuss later. But so you've got that kind of, if suddenly tomorrow all the models weren't available, I'd be able to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with you. Like, whenever the game stops being available, I'll still play it.
Yeah.
Nothing stops you playing it. The only thing that stops you playing it is if people stop playing it.
Yeah.
So you'll still have your rule books, you'll still have the dice, you'll still have everything that you need to play this game, and it will just be about that. The only issue I can see is that new players won't be able to get into it.
I think that new players would be able to get into it via eBay but the issue is knowing it's out there, because it's not going to be advertised in the shop, so they're not going to go in with their mum and dad and say, I want this Hobbit box set. It'll have to be, through word of mouth to do this, because I think on eBay, even when it goes out of production, that things like a set of 24 goblins probably won't be the most expensive in the grand scheme of things.
It'll also depend why you're getting into it. If you're getting into it because you really like Lord of the Rings and you want to play a fun game, then yes, you'll be able to get into it. If you want to get into it because you want to take in some Watchers of Kana and some Feral Uruk-hai and some Mahud to a tournament and win. I don't know why I said Mahud, but I was thinking of rare models rather than incredible models.
Sorry, George.
But you won't be able to get those.
No.
A new player won't be willing to kind of say, 3 Uruk-hai are 30 quid. I'm not going to do that. So that's the only downside.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that the huge community doesn't keep playing the games. There are, at the moment, the tournament scene's booming. There are, I think, 600 people on the Facebook group.
666 it was.
Yeah, it was 666. There are 6,000 registered users of the One Ring, I believe. And obviously, not all of those are active by any means. But there's a lot of interest in this game, and people will keep playing it.
The One Ring doesn't mean it's all UK. Oh, but neither's the Facebook group.
No, exactly.
It's all worldwide.
There are these people who are interested in it. And I can certainly, personally, I can't see myself ever getting rid of these models.
No.
I don't know why I would.
If you've painted them, you don't really want to sell them.
So I'll be playing this game as long as I've got people to play it with, essentially.
So in 20 years' time, give Damien a bell.
Yeah, I'll be well up for a game. So that's the kind of. I don't think the game will. There's two parts to the question. I don't think the game will die by any means.
No.
And the indie scene is flourishing.
Yeah.
So say there were no more supplements ever, we'd still keep using our toys.
Yeah.
And there are currently, I think there were 14 tournaments this year that counted towards the British League,
Yeah.
which is more than one a month. And sure, if the game's no longer available, that will probably, in years to come, maybe decrease a bit, but there's still an awful lot.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of tournaments, and there's a lot of love for this, where you can go and get a lot of good games in.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone's got anything to worry about with getting a game of it.
No.
Particularly, well, you know, we're talking about the UK really.
Yeah.
You know, I can't really say for.
No, I mean, I think it's harder for people in, say, the US or Australia, just from a geographical point of view, concentrations of people.
Although, I mean, the Australian scene is also booming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I don't think it's the same physical numbers, but there's a lot of interest there.
No.
They're doing a podcast.
Yeah, so
Green Dragon.
Yeah, I
think
listened
it's
to their Witch King
Yeah.
one.
I listened to the first one where they were talking about the barrels out of Bond scenario.
Okay.
Listened to that. It was
Cool,
really good.
I'd like
I
to
really enjoyed
listen
it.
to that.
And yeah, they were just talking about a tournament that had their record attendance in Melbourne, I think it was.
And how much was that?
I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. But on there was a thread about doing a road trip. I think
I
Ed
saw
started
that
it.
today.
And I was like, I would love to, like, but my M Lover is very supportive of this hobby, but I think I am playing the, you know, I'm lucky to get away with going to a tournament every month, something like that, you know.
Yeah.
I think suggesting going to Australia without her to play with nerds.
You could go to Australia on holiday and happen to be there.
Well, this is how I
for
think
that
we
weekend.
should spin it.
Yeah.
Because I think they said it was in April, so that maybe we could work it if it's in the Easter holidays.
We could do a couple's holiday.
Yeah, a couple's holiday in the Easter holidays, and get over there. And I reckon you should go up for that. What, go to Australia? Yeah, and then but for 2 days, I'm busy. You know, and that would be cool. And I think there's a few people who would love to make the effort, but of course it is just a financial and a logistical thing because it's such a huge deal.
Yeah.
So
And I think
who
it's
knows?
quite close to Stockport.
What, Australia? It's really not, man. It's really not. I don't even. I mean, it's a way away from Stockport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. It's a big journey, like Stockport to us, but it's a bit further. I'll tell you when you're older.
Okay. It's in April.
It's in April.
Cheers for that. Yeah. So again, that's another kind of thing because I don't know if you're gonna go to Australia, you want to make a week or 2 out of it.
I'm finding it hard enough to get to Scotland in November, let alone get into Australia. But who knows? Maybe it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the first part of the question.
Yeah.
The second part then is that was touched on in this comment, and a lot of other people discuss this. Is would there be a final edition by the community?
Yes.
That's the kind of question that would essentially all the FAQs that are out there would then be accumulated, and possibly some profiles would be fixed. Like fixed is an interesting term.
Fixed. I was going to say.
And piercing special strikes would be fixed.
Yeah.
And all this sort of thing. And I've seen this on loads and loads of threads, loads and loads of Facebook threads and stuff. And will that happen?
But the thing is, I mean, in terms of the fix thing, I mean, Adam Troke was trying to fix it when he made the Hobbit rules. I mean, if we start to try and fix it, there'll be more things that go wrong.
Yeah. You fix one thing and that breaks another thing.
And I think what we don't appreciate is that an awful lot of play testing goes into these kind of rules changes, and the undertaking of doing that would be some effort to try and make sure that every profile was correctly pointed or whatever without favouring one army over the other.
Yeah, I mean, my issue has always been that people always talk about Theoden as Theoden needs a new profile. So say we give him one, and he's 100 points, and he's fairly costed, and he has 3 will and 3 fate, probably still 2 attacks, and people often talk about him counting as a banner to Rohan
like
troops, maybe being like Ael's legendary hero, something like that, and he's a good profile.
Yeah.
Where does that go? Where does that profile go out into the world? Where do we put that? And if you decide to publish a source book, where do you stop?
Yeah.
You have Theoden. you then surely need all the other Rohan ones. You have to have it as a Rohan.
Oh, you'd have to do a
book.
Rohan.
And
you'd have to do everything.
And then Rohan have now got their own source book that's fixed that no one else has. So that's an issue that essentially, like you say, you would have to do everything.
I guess that's what happens in Warhammer though at the moment. It kind of
It does.
It updates an army. Done.
But they
move on.
They do them one at a time, don't they?
Yeah.
Over the period of one every 3 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And also, and this is a real issue, GW have the authority.
Yeah.
GW write the rules, so they make a new version, and that's the new version that replaces it. We don't have that.
No.
So I think it's
another question is who is we?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think it's a fundamentally good idea in principle that after you re-look at the source books in light of the Hobbit rules, because the source books all came out. That's why there's an awful lot of FAQs about Fell Beasts, because Fell Beasts came out. The rules for Fell Beasts were before Special Strikes.
Yeah.
And there's how that interacts with
loads of random ones in there that you can see have been written without the new rule book in mind.
And that's because they were published a year before.
Yeah.
So of course there's going to be some problems, but the question then is, who does it?
Yeah.
Because without the authority, and you could only do it when it's not on sale anymore.
Yeah. No.
The only way you could do it, because it's worked for Blood Bowl. Have you ever played Blood Bowl?
I've never played it.
It's really good, but when they stopped selling it, if anyone doesn't know Blood Bowl, it's a board game from Games Workshop about a kind of American football essentially, but you try and kill each other and score. It's really good fun. Go and check it out. So that's now long been out of print, and it has a thriving kind of indie community.
Still going.
Yeah, still going, and there is a living rule book. I think they call it. That is the rules, and it's not the published rules. It's the published rules amended essentially. And when there are events, they use that rule book. But you can't go into Games Workshop and buy Blood Bowl anymore.
No.
So if you want to play Blood Bowl, you have to get that rule book. So if we did this, someone did it.
Yeah.
Then and you could still walk into Games Workshop and pick up the hardback book. Then whoever's just paid 50 quid for that book is going to go, well, I'm not using those rules because these are the rules. So first thing first, I think this could only ever be a thing if the game isn't being sold anymore.
Yeah.
But then
that's for the new profiles as opposed to FAQs. I mean, the FAQ is definitely valid now.
Yeah. So in the UK, I guess for the GBHL, we have a community FAQ.
Yeah.
So there are the official FAQs from Games Workshop about all the different source books, and then we have everything that wasn't in them, or everything that's come up that wasn't in them. We've put together a kind of community FAQ, which is now used in all the GBHL events, I think, which is great.
Yeah.
So that really kind of took off, and that is a fairly long document. I think there's 70-ish questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. So they're not necessarily frequently asked questions. Although, what was at the event this weekend? Camels! His favourite thing. That's why there's lots of questions on camels.
Frequently asked questions.
Oh, though Chris Young asked about Azog in the tournament, came over and I was like, it's in the FAQ.
Yeah, absolutely.
He then looked in the GW FAQ and I was like,
this
is the new one.
But they said we're using the community FAQ for this. So that is to deal with, it's not fixing things, it's grey areas. And the reason that came out, we did that out of, I'm saying we here, it wasn't just me and Tom, but we were involved in it.
Yeah.
That we did it because you would go to a tournament and different rulings would be applied to different tables based on how different people interpret it, which could cause a kind of, not ill feeling, but
But if you'd been told you can't do that in a later game and had done it in an early one or vice versa, it gets a bit messy.
And it's all, we kind of do it on community polls, so if anyone disagrees, we put it up on the Facebook group, people vote on it, and then that amends the answer.
Once it's been polled and approved, then that's it.
So that's worked really well for the indie events. And what's been really interesting, this is kind of where we're getting to, is that at Warhammer World, I spoke to Simon Grant about...
and who's Simon Grant?
Simon Grant is a games developer at Games Workshop. I don't think they're in different departments or anything now, but it seems to be the big driver at the moment behind The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. I think he was heavily involved in the Desolation of Smaug source book and that sort of thing. He was always, when he used to be in White Dwarf, he used to write an awful lot about it. He was a big fan.
Yeah, and he did the Tale of Four Gamers in White Dwarf for Lord of the Rings.
Very lovely bloke.
Yeah.
And I was chatting to him and I sent him the FAQ document, the community one, and he has now messaged today, so this is some news, messaged the
press.
Facebook group, that those questions, or some of those questions, the majority of those, I think, have been incorporated into the official FAQs. So they will likely be published soon. So good news, we are getting at some point soon, and I know you said they have to be translated because they kind of go globally together, but at some point soon there will be new FAQs.
And errata.
And errata, for some of those issues that the community have done. So the community has kind of not improved the game, but fed into the game.
Yeah, shown what the perceived grey areas are. And I think Simon's made the comment that, you know, some of the questions that we've raised in the community FAQ aren't necessarily, in their minds, a grey area.
Yeah, and I completely agree.
And also some of the rulings that we've made, I say we again, the whole community in a sense, on the official Games Workshop rule, and
which is
they'll
brilliant.
be changed. Yeah. So it'll be really interesting to see which ones have changed and which haven't. I think that Legolas will probably be the big one that changes.
Legolas will be able to pick.
I think so.
Yeah, he'll be able to pick his Mount Rider.
For those who didn't know, there was a big poll on whether Legolas could or could not specifically auto-hit the rider of a mount, or the mount themselves, either one. And we decided overall...
This is the community.
Yeah, the community, not
community
not
voted
we.
on this.
And it was a huge thread. I went to dinner and I came back and there was something like 100 plus comments about this. So it was a very quite, I wouldn't say heated debate, but there was...
It was quite contentious.
Yeah.
I think it in the end it was something like 3-2.
And at various points during the discussion, someone like Damien would come on and do a little summary of where we're at, so that people didn't have to keep going through, because, you know, with a thread that long, people are going to keep saying the same things over and over.
But what was very interesting was that discussion was quite civil, I thought, and then it led to a kind of demographic, democratic, sorry, democratic consensus, which then got consensus. That then got fed into the FAQ, and then the community accepted it.
Yeah.
And so, all these questions that we've kind of now discussed as a group are going to be put up there, and some of them, I think a lot of them, are going to now be part of the game officially, which is great. So the community can have an effect in that respect.
Yeah.
But my big issue of it is just it has to be after the game's not on sale anymore, and who does it? Like who does it? I've seen some threads on the One Ring of people saying I'm doing this as a new set of rules. And it's like, oh, great, but how do you get the authority to say these are the rules? And I think the only thing you could do is you could have a regional thing, possibly as big as the GBHL. Possibly, if there's still a lot of interest, there might be in the future a GBHL rule set.
Yeah,
I could see that as a thing.
And maybe it's a tournament specific rule set.
Yeah.
So the organizer of the tournament can have these new profiles, or say, piercing strike is this instead.
You know, the Dutch players, was it you that told me this? The Dutch players said in their tournaments they don't use special strikes.
I did not tell you that.
Yeah, except I think heroes can do it, they said. Oh. But the Dutch tournaments, they don't use special strikes.
Wow.
So you could do that.
Yeah.
You could have a kind of, or you could change what piercing strike means in the GBHL tournament.
Yeah.
And you could gradually, I think, possibly build up a...
Yeah, once people are used to
that. But
rules at an event.
To do it on any kind of... As wonderful as it would be to have a, ultimate rule set. And then you also get into issues with IP infringement.
Yeah.
Like how... I'm not actually sure of the legality of could you even, after they're not selling it, could you reprint the rule book but change certain words?
I doubt it. That's definitely Games Workshop intellectual property.
Yeah, and even though it's not on sale, it's still their IP.
Yeah.
But maybe if it was free, I think possibly if it was a free download.
Well, copyright, it doesn't matter if it's free or not.
But I mean, the Blood Bowl thing is an example of where there's one thing where I imagine every word in it hasn't been reworded. So there's obviously some variants, but my main thing with it is just who's going to do it. Who's going to do it and say, put in probably years of work and make one wonderful document and then put it up online and everyone going, that's really good, I'm going to use my Hobbit rulebook. That's the thing.
They need to have some sort. I think it would need to be a kind of thing, like you say, to be introduced at a tournament and kind of grow naturally, as opposed to it. I'm going to do this in one go, bang, there it is.
I do like. We've talked about this before. I like the idea of tournaments having custom profiles. Like, so you go, if you want to come to this tournament before you paid your ticket, these profiles will be available.
Yeah.
You know, this Theoden, isn't it? Maybe people often talk about Faramir, Captain of Imrahil.
Yeah.
Captain of Imrahil? The Captain of Athelion and Golfinball, who we're actually going to talk about later, being back in the game, essentially. Like profiles that have just kind of vanished from the game.
Yeah, the Faramir one, was he just in the White Dwarf when the model came out? I think you can only get it in it was never in a source book.
Yeah.
Or I might be completely wrong.
No, I think you're right. Could be wrong though, as is our motto.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so, you know, some people said, some people actually suggested to us, can we put that in the community FAQ?
Yeah.
And we've always erred away from it because it's not a frequently asked question.
Yeah. Well, it is a question.
But I like the idea of, you could start there. You could start with community approved profiles. Maybe.
Community approved.
Something like that. So like.
Oh, so you think before the tournament that people put on the profile as like the day before the vote, discuss this profile, do you think it works? And then the next day vote for a yes, no? Yeah, or
something like that. I'm not entirely sure how you do it, but that community FAQ could be FAQs and then profiles, and you can if you come to a GBHL event using this document, you can use this profile, and then that's available to everyone. You know, you can download it and all that. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people would be hugely opposed to that. Possibly, I don't know. What do you think? But I could see it growing that way. Yeah. But then that's still a million miles away from a rule set.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a different aspect. The set of profiles is like the source books is different to a new rule set, and that's very tricky.
So that was interesting. I think it's already feeling quite lengthy.
Point one.
But yeah, point one. We've got less. I think we've got three points to discuss, haven't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was. Let us know what you think.
Like, it'd be really interesting because, I mean, I think there'll be a lot of split opinion on this as well.
Yeah, which is good. Discussion is a good thing. Civil discussion is good. And that's why I really like. I'm the person who puts up the polls on the Facebook group, and I've been really pleasantly surprised that the discussions for the FAQs about between people who completely disagree are largely very civil.
Yeah.
About kind of, I think this because it says this, well I think this because it says this, yeah, but what about this, and okay.
Yeah.
And then the best thing about it, and the only reason it's worked, is once they're voted for, everyone just accepts them.
Yeah.
People that go, fair enough, that's the way this document is working.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see the new FAQs.
Yeah.
To see what's in there and then update R1 based on that.
Yeah, and Simon even made the comment that the community FAQ can still be there in the background to clear up all of these other questions, but they just won't be in the official one.
So, from me personally, and I don't know if you want to do this as well, and
I don't know what you're going to say.
Yeah, this is but thanks Simon for taking the time. If you're watching this, for taking the time to actually go to all that effort and kind of listen to what we were asking essentially.
Yeah, it's hugely appreciated by everyone.
Yeah. So yeah, cheers. So that's that question. So what was topic 2?
Topic 2 is to do with proxies.
Proxies. the deadly word of proxy.
What is a proxy?
What is a proxy?
Yeah.
A proxy is when you use a model to represent something that it isn't. I guess you use a model on the table, you use an incorrect model to represent a profile.
Okay.
I don't know what a proxy is. Is that right? There's got to be a better definition than that.
Yeah.
Define a proxy.
I did put him on the spot.
Yeah. So what do you think? Like,
yeah, using another model to represent something that it wasn't intended to be in the first instance.
Yes. Yeah, that's better. You win.
Okay.
So yeah, this is a huge topic, and it came up because someone specifically asked about this.
Yeah.
On in the comments, was it Peter Sanson?
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
And he basically asked that he uses Golfinball
as Sharku. Or any orc, named orc.
And any kind of to be fair, actually, I use it with anyone. And is that all right?
Yeah.
And I think what's kind of unique about this question is that Golfinball isn't available anymore and isn't a profile.
No.
So, what is Golfinball at this point? Like, Can you use
an
it?
alt captain.
Yeah, and I think most people say he's an alt captain.
Yeah.
And then it becomes what is Golfinball not? He's not Sharku. So this is a huge can of worms
Yeah.
to get into. And the reason we're talking about this is there's also been a couple of other threads on the
Yes.
Facebook page about proxies this week, because we thought it was a very kind of current thing. So I reckon we'll come back to proxies in weeks to come as well. But
yeah, probably.
we'll have a chat about those kind of specifics today, and then maybe kind of wander off tangent a bit on it, I guess, because it's a huge thing.
See where it goes.
It's what we do. So, can Peter
Yes.
use Golfinball as Sharku? Thomas Harrison.
So in any sort of practice game, proxies is absolutely fine as long as your opponent's up for it. I don't think that's a problem at all. At a tournament, it's a little trickier because people are paying to come to events and they want to play proper armies. You know, if you're saying Golfinball Sharku, then you can say, well, my whatever.
Aragorn's Galadriel.
Yeah.
I think the issue, and I don't know if I've ever said this in a video, but I've said this to lots of people, is the scale.
Yeah.
That saying, what's a good example? A warrior of Minas Tirith is an Osgiliath veteran. No, so actually, you know what? Even worse than that. Saying Saruman the White is evil Saruman.
Yeah.
So it's Saruman with the Palantir, or Saruman the White.
Okay.
Is the same thing as saying. What would annoy people beyond anything else like that? Like, yeah, Aragorn is Galadriel. It's the same thing, but they're just further down the scale. Yeah. It really is. It's you're saying this model is a model it isn't.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and what makes it such a contentious thing is, we use the scale. There's Aragorn as Galadriel. There's Worm as there's Saruman as Saruman.
Yeah.
Everyone will be somewhere here.
Yeah.
And there will be some people, and I don't think we should name names, like
no.
It's not what this is about. There will some people who will be here and say, no, you can't, because it's not. And there will some people will be here and say, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so where would you say you were?
In tournaments?
Yeah.
In tournaments, I would say I'm probably about here-ish.
And in normal games?
Probably about there-ish.
Yeah.
I would be annoyed. I wouldn't want to play, because Lord of the Rings has always been about the spectacle for me.
Yeah.
The cinematic thing, and I don't like playing with unpainted models.
No.
So even in a practice
game,
game,
completely different though. Yeah.
But what I mean is, it's the look of things. So even in a practice game, if someone is doing that, it's like, that's stupid though. It's not. Whereas if someone was saying Golfinball Sharku, I'd probably be right.
Or if we're doing a practice game and it's meant to be an Osgiliath themed game, and I take Minas Tirith and say they're all Osgiliath veterans because we're Osgiliath.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're playing it. We've done it on the channel actually a few times. Like we used Warg Riders as Hunter Orcs on Fel Wargs, because in that instance everyone's fine with it. And it's all about your opponent being fine with it, I think.
Yeah, and also the ease of kind of understanding what each model represents. So if you have a force of all Azog's hunters and there's Warg Riders in there, then it's obviously they're all Warg Rider models as opposed to the Hunter Orc models, then it's fine. But if you then mix that and say, actually I've got a warband of Mordor Warg Riders with them, then it
confuses your opponent.
Yeah, it gets too difficult.
And for me, because it's all about it being fine with your opponent, why it's not fine at tournaments is because you don't know if it's fine with your opponent. You don't know your opponents.
Yeah.
So I think that's the important thing, that at tournaments. Now, what's interesting is we're saying this, but it's actually every time it's down to the decision of the TO.
Yeah.
And different TOs will have different tournaments, even in the GBHL, have very different feelings about proxies. Some will have no proxies allowed. Some will have fairly lenient proxies.
Yeah.
And I don't know. If I go to a tournament, I go by the rules of the tournament organizer. If I don't like proxies, I won't go to a tournament where there's going to be proxies. What's quite interesting about Peter's comment is he's using a fairly rare model to represent a fairly common model, which is normally what normally annoys people about proxies. I think is saying my warriors of Minas Tirith are Osgiliath veterans.
Yes, the other way around. It's either they're rare, that it's a normal cheap model as a rarer, more expensive model, or a better model in the game. In gameplay.
What annoys people about them is when you are, it's seemingly at least, and these are just our opinions, trying to get an in-game advantage perhaps without being willing to buy the real models.
Yeah, and there's a scale on this, so you know you might not be able to buy Ferrolurokai or whatever, so people will convert models to look like Ferrolurokai. So there's an Urukai Scout that just has the shield chopped off and a sword put on.
Yeah.
This is a Ferrolurokai. But then you could go, you know, I don't know what conversions you could do, but make a really good job at it. Same with Osgiliath veterans.
Maybe
you know,
do something with a Berserker and make them hold
maybe.
2 weapons.
And then, but with Prowlers, you know, just shove a HUD on. But I think we saw Prowler conversions at East Grinstead and they look really good. So, you know, there's the scale here as well, like what is an acceptable conversion to be a proxy, that no longer becomes a proxy and is actually a representation of that thing.
I think that...
And it's about effort as well, effort and intent of, you know, I want that model to look really cool. And either I can't get them or I just really wanted to do it like this, it looks really good.
Yeah, because the issue for me is, if someone's saying, right, I really want Ferrolurokai, and I can't get the models anymore, so I've put 2 swords on my scouts and they're Ferrolurokai, why use Ferrolurokai? You don't have to use Ferrolurokai. The only reason you would want to use them, arguably, is that you want to do better in a tournament,
Yeah, I mean,
in which case I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think just taking it to make your army more competitive is a good reason, whereas I do think converting something is an interesting topic.
Because Peter's other example was using Twilight Ring Wraiths, 2 on a base, a shade size base to act as a shade. So shade's out of production.
Yeah.
So it's expensive and it's powerful in the game. But the Twilight Ring Wraiths are also quite rare. So
and out of production.
Yeah. And they are both kind of dead things, you don't really see them very often. So
Twilight Ring Wraiths don't have a profile at the moment. So you can't use that model in the game.
Unless someone puts the ring on and then you can switch your Ring Wraith out for it.
But if you saw a 40mm round base with 2...
a dead thing on it.
2...
Selectory things.
Twilight Ring Wraiths, you'd know it was a shade if it was an Angmar army, I think. And if your opponent told you.
And actually it was Bruce, wasn't it? He'd come from Holland, but he was from the Netherlands, but he's American. And he'd brought a Watcher of Karna army, but he'd actually got a shade with it, so it's absolute filth. Absolute
tournament filth.
He'd made an amazing conversion of a shade where there's this Watcher of Karna, kind of trying to shovel this shade, either open a basket to let out the shade.
I thought he was trying to shut it. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, it's either opening or shutting it, trying to keep it in, or kind of let it out.
Box kind of opening, and this big blobby,
with lots
ghosty
of heads
thing was coming out.
off.
And it looked fantastic.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And so someone goes to you, that's my shade, and you go, oh, of course it is, brilliantly. But that isn't a shade model.
Yeah.
But then someone says, this spirit host is a shade. And so, well, it's not, it's a spirit host. So why one and not the other?
Yeah.
And the spirit host thing I bring up because that came up this week.
Yeah.
If you've seen any of the leaks, they're not out yet. They haven't been published yet. I think they're coming. They're coming from the pictures coming from the new Warhammer Visions. Yeah. But there is a new Undead book out, and there are spirit hosts in it. The spirit host model has been. I don't know if you've ever seen the old spirit host model. It's one of the oldest metal models in GW's range, and it's awful. It's hilariously bad. There's 3 ghosts go woo and woo like that. There's 3 of them, and they look terrible. And that was around when I used to play Fantasy.
Okay.
And it's finally been updated.
50 years ago.
Well, maybe pretty soon. And it's finally been updated into this plastic, really cool ghost model. And someone put on the Facebook page, could I use this as a shade? So the shade's out of production. There is a cool spirit model. If you put that on a 40mm base, it looks like a bunch of ghosts spinning around.
And it's not a Lord of the Rings model to be confused with.
No, couldn't be confused with anything else.
So,
could use it as a shade.
My personal view is that you could, because I remember when Chris Young brought his Elven Stormcaller that isn't an Elven Stormcaller. It's a Mordheim.
It's a Mordheim Elf Mage.
Yeah. And it's essentially the same garb as a Wood Elf Warrior, so it looks absolutely perfect when you paint it up. It's a Stormcaller.
It's very slight for a Warhammer model. So it fits in with the range. Yeah.
It doesn't look out of place at all. I thought he'd done a conversion on a Wood Elf Warrior until he told me that no, it's just another model. So I actually went and bought that to to use in my army because I thought it was really cool.
And this is the huge rub. And Will, I think it was Will Champion possibly. He I don't know if it's the same thread, but there was another thread about proxies where he wanted to use his Morannon Orcs as Mordor Orcs because he preferred the look.
No, I remember that.
So they're all plastics that are available freely.
Yeah.
But he preferred the armoured look.
I think it was. I don't think it was just that. He wanted a mix of both of them, just an absolute rabble, and he just wanted them to be Mordor.
And they would all be Mordor
Yeah,
Orcs. So he would say to his opponent at the start of the game, all of these Orcs on the table are Mordor Orcs.
Yeah.
You can't get confused.
And then, I mean, he's going anti-competitive. He's demoting the favourable Morannon Orcs to Mordor Orcs.
And that was the interesting discussion that then suddenly come up. Is proxying alright if you're making your models worse? If you're essentially not trying to game the system?
I mean, I don't think it should make a difference, but it is. It is interesting.
It's about the intent, then, because it shouldn't make a difference because it's exactly the same thing.
Exactly.
And that is exactly the same place on the scale.
Yeah.
Using a Morannon Orc as a Mordor Orc is just swapping one model for another.
Yeah.
So they're on the same place on the scale, but because you're making your army weaker, it says to your opponent, I'm doing this for fun and for fluff. Whereas if it's making your army better, it says to your opponent, I'm doing this to get one over on you.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it comes down to intent.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. And it was really interesting. There were these three kind of things that came round this week about proxies with the Spirit Host as a shade and the Morannon Orcs as Mordor Orcs.
Yeah, and we've done it before. We kind of tried to push each other going, what about this? Yes, this, yes, this, yes.
It's the Saruman example.
No, not that.
The Saruman example, I think, is a really good one, where you have Saruman with the Palantir, and you use him as Saruman the White. And the vast majority of people go, yeah, it's Saruman, but he's got the Palantir. Yeah. And they go, oh, but he probably had that when he was good. Okay.
No, he's advertising the show.
He is advertising the show, yeah, absolutely. But then, so Saruman is Saruman.
Yeah.
Can I use Sharky as Saruman? And people do that. People go, oh, but
then they say Grima as Grima as Worm.
Grima as Worm, surely. But they're two, we go, you can't use Sharky Saruman because they're two different profiles. Can you use Grima as Worm? They're two different profiles. Who would... And the Worm model's better. I prefer the Worm model.
I'd like to use that as a Grima model.
Yeah. But that's a proxy.
Yeah. So...
And this is the thing, it's all this scale.
Yeah.
And... For me, you kind of either have to say no proxies or all proxies.
But I don't want to stop conversions because some of the conversions that come out from...
The conversion is a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because a conversion is where you've taken a model and you've changed it.
But then there's the scale of,
like
the scale of how good the conversion
is.
Not how good it is from a modelling point of view, but how much intent and effort there is in there.
Absolutely. It's the Warriors with Spears. If you blue tack Spears to the back of Grimhammers, it doesn't make them Warriors variable. If you go to the effort that kind of Sam, myself, Mark Boylan, Larry have, it's a different thing. People go, well, I can see why you've done that.
Yeah. And
it's about intent, but sadly you can't make that kind of ruling for the game based on personal feelings, can you?
No.
And so I think those are the major issues with proxies. So to answer the question, at a tournament, I wouldn't be happy. If I'm being honest here, if Goldfinball was Sharku, because I'd be like, why haven't you got Sharku? If Goldfinball, I've seen Goldfinball used as an Orc captain.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Because I think that's what he is. And what was his other example? Sorry, it was the
Twilight Ring Race.
If two Twilight Ring Race were on a 40mm base and you said that was a shade, I'd be fine with it.
Well, you wouldn't be fine with the shade in his army, but you'd be fine.
I'd be fine with you doing it. And what does that make me? That makes me a hypocrite. Because they're the same thing.
Yeah.
They're the same, they really are. But I'm fine with one of them and I'm not fine with the other because they're at different points on the scale.
One other one, Raphael, who came to the tournament, had a Scorpion in his Mahud themed army, the one with camels. And that Scorpion kind of it was on a 60mm base and acting as Shelob.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
If it was...
Because that's clearly intent.
Yeah.
It's not a Lord of the Rings model to be confused with.
The whole army was themed around scorpions, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There were scorpions on all the banners. Yeah. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because there's that... For me, the only problem with it is, why do you have to have Shelob?
Yeah.
Why don't you just have more of that army?
But I think maybe it was you know, that's the theme. It's the scorpion.
They're
theme.
worshipping giant scorpions, perhaps. Yeah.
And then to get that in, you need a profile for it.
Yeah.
And he puts it as Shelob. Personally, if I played against it, I'd be totally fine with it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have a problem.
There's no way you can confuse it.
No.
You can't. He goes, there's a giant scorpion. That's not in Lord of the Rings. And he goes, well, it's Shelob. And you go, oh, okay. And then you look at all these other scorpions on his army. And you go, okay, it's a desert themed basis. And he's got an army of camels. And you go, oh, cool, this is a cool army.
How does a camel work?
Check the FAQ. There's about 7,000 questions about them. But that it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people wouldn't be alright with that. And I know some people who won't go to a tournament with that kind of thing because they won't enjoy playing that.
Yeah.
And that's their opinion. And it's all about this scale.
Yeah.
That where each one is on it. And every single person who has their opinion, and hopefully we'll write them in the comments, is just somewhere else on the scale.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the scale.
Yeah.
I like the scale.
It's like a 3-dimensional scale though, because you've got the scale of
and then,
replacing models and the
conversion.
And intent. It's like you can make a little cube.
It's a 3D model.
Somewhere in the cube.
There's some of our thoughts on proxies.
Yeah.
But the I think Grima and Grima is the one that I can't imagine who would complain about it.
No.
But
the Sharky side.
When you say that's fine, you've got to go all the way the other way, all the way down. So those are my personal thoughts.
Yeah.
But they don't represent the views of any tournament organisers or anything. You would have any of those options. You would just have to ask each TO.
Yeah.
Put it. I think buy your Spirit Host, glue it to a 40mm base, use it in all your games. Every tournament you go to, send the TO a message in advance.
Yeah.
If
If
someone does that, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
No.
Personally, that as a Spirit Host, as a shade. Sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, proxies.
Cool. So we're on to our final post.
Yeah, final topic of the day.
Which was whether we could talk about Batman. Because I know that James and Jamie have been doing some hobby vlogs, an unboxing even of Batman.
Absolutely.
And what's our thoughts on Batman?
No.
That was blunt. No. I don't think we'd be able to fill more than a minute on Batman.
I like Batman.
Yeah.
I like the Dark Knight. Dark Knight Rises was disappointing. But I don't have any interest in the game.
No, I mean, happy to watch the hobby vlogs on it. And whatever, that's cool. But I think it kind of raised the question to us as if we could pick a secondary war game.
Yes.
What would it be?
So you won't hear anything from us about Batman.
No, so sorry, Quinn Duggan?
Yeah, it's Quinn who posted it. Because we don't have any of the models. We don't have any of the models. We don't have the time or the money to
we can't
go out
translate
and start that
Spanish.
system. Yeah, and apparently, I haven't seen rave reviews of the system that made me go, I want to try it. I'd be up for playing it, but I'm not. It's not something I'm interested in. I've always been a fantasy fan.
Yeah.
So the games I've always gravitated towards.
Fantasy as in Warhammer, or fantasy like sci-fi, like X-Wing or something?
Like sci-fi and fantasy.
Okay.
So like Tolkien as well. What is the hell is fantasy? Like ogres and goblins and stuff.
Okay.
I like that rather than the kind of sci-fi stuff of X-Wing or the kind of modern day stuff, I guess, of Batman.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what we did think would be interesting, particularly because some of the stuff that's happened this week, is kind of actually what a kind of hobby envy.
Yeah.
Of what might we want to do. And this came about because of this. White Dwarf has come out, and the new Nagash model, and the new Nagash source books, and I want it so much. I want all of it, I want to buy it all.
So, to buy it all, you need to get the rulebook.
Rulebook's £50.
Okay. You don't need the dice or anything, or the paints or anything, that's fine. Well, you'd have to get some crazy colours, because there's different colours in fantasy.
I've got a lot of paints.
Okay. And then...
Nagash.
Yep.
He's £65.
Okay. Do you need anything else?
Massive.
How many points is he?
He's 1,000 points.
So he's an army on this side.
And I've got a Vampire Council army. I think this is important that when I was a kid, I went 10 to 20, when I was into the hobby to begin with, I played fantasy.
Yeah.
And I had a Wood Elf army and a Vampire Council army. And they're still in cabinets at my mum and dad's house.
Right.
So I haven't played fantasy in years. I think I last played 6th edition, possibly 5th edition, and they're now on 8th.
Okay.
And I don't play it. But seeing that, I had the Nagash model when I first got into hobby. I was about 12 years old, and I got the Nagash model, and it is now regarded as one of the worst models GW ever produced. It's hilarious. There's actually a thing that I believe is true. The old Nagash model, go and check this out on the threads. Like, just Google this. The old Nagash model had a skull, and the skull's grinning, and it looks ridiculous. And apparently, there was always a bit of. If you look at the artwork for Nagash, he's actually in the old book. He's actually more like a leash with a kind of rotting skin face. And apparently he was sculpted by the sculptor with a rotting skin face, and the feedback was, this is a bit too scary, can you give us something else? And he sculpted the skull as a joke. He sculpted like a grinning skull, and they went with that. And I've heard this as a thread, and I think I seem to remember seeing the original face, like someone's got a cast of it and stuff, apparently. But I loved Nagash, and that's what got me into wargaming. I used to have big undead games led by Nagash, and big high elf games led by Teclis, and we'd run forward and kind of learn the rules and have a bit of fun. And that then, Nagash then vanished from the game completely when they split undead into Tombkins and Vampire Counts. He hasn't been a playable character in about at least 15 years. And now they brought Nagash back, and it took me back to being a kid and playing Warhammer, and going, I want that so much. And I want to get that model, and I want to paint it, and I want to. I've still got my Vampire Count, so I could dig that out. Yeah, and I'm sure it wouldn't be valid anymore because I could use some of the models, but my army was built in the old days where Warhammer units were 5x4 blocks of 20, and now you're like 10 wide to make a horde and 4 deep. So it's almost as if you have to buy more models. But it really made me want to do it, and I've got that White Dwarf and been flicking through it. And I'm like, I want this. And I want the Spirit Host, and I don't even want to put it on a round base, and I don't want to use a proxy. And there's a models coming out next week, like some of the old heroes. Ark and the Black used to be on a flying chariot made out of a dead manticore, and he's now riding this giant thing, looks like a giant sphinx, and that's going to be about 50 quid, and I want it. And it just really got me thinking, if I get this, I have no time to paint it. I have a huge backlog of Lord of the Rings models. I've got no one to play it with. I don't know how to play Warhammer anymore. But plus I really want it.
It's the knock-on effect. If you get one, you're gonna get more.
Get an army.
And another.
So many cool new models out for them, And so it's just that kind of. Should I start that system, Tom?
I like Lord of the Rings, so I'd personally say no.
Have you ever played Fantasy?
No.
I couldn't teach you now. I could teach you the old version. I could teach you 5th edition. It's good. I liked it. It's a good game. It's very different.
We should get out your old figures and have a game of 5th edition.
I'd stop in on my mum and dad's, have a game of Warhammer, and I'll show you what it's like. It's a good game, and it's why I'm here. Warhammer is why
That's what started.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think I'm going to get the book. There's a 300-page book about the fluff, and as a kid I was always really drawn to the story behind it. So I think I'm going to order from. This isn't a contract, but I think I'm going to order from Slayer Games. I've got some store credit there, so I'll get it as a bit of a discount. I think I'm going to order the Nagash books and just enjoy my time reading through them.
Yeah.
And
that'd be.
See where it takes
nice.
And then buy Nagash and everything else.
So that's how it's going to work. Because you had the same thing.
Look at it! It's so cool. Look at that. It's huge. Look at him. That's like a skeleton down there. It's the coolest. Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's probably about.
Yeah.
That bit. So there's the scale, and then there's this scale.
Look at that. And do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get it and I'm going to use it as a shade.
What's something this big on
a 40mm face? Yeah. Then you'll see.
Because you had this.
And everyone will be like, that is cool. That's Nagash.
Yeah. Now Damien goes through this every couple of months. Wood Elves came out.
I want them. Because it's my other army. Because it's Wood Elves and Vampire Counts, and they both came out. Yeah.
So you've waited all this time, and then boom.
Well, Wood Elves haven't been updated. Undead have had lots of releases over the years, but Wood Elves haven't been updated since about 2005, I think it was.
Okay.
Something like that. But yeah.
But you didn't get the source.
I didn't get the Wood Elf book. No, it's an army book that I like for fantasy.
There's an initiative roll as well into the priority.
You don't need to do it.
Oh, you don't.
Assuming it's the same, you don't.
It just.
One of you rolls to see if you go first. They move, shoot, fight, and then the other person moves, shoots, fight. It's very different. There's a magic phase as well.
Okay.
I think. People are going to yell at me. Go, that is so 1999. But yeah. So what about you? Do you get this? Because you're obviously we're plugged into the Game Workshop world. Have you been tempted by Fantasy or 40k?
Not 40k. I think there's a caveat to this, but I'm not a big fan of guns and chainsaws or anything like that. It's not really me. I like the kind of old style, almost historical type of wargaming, where
Okay.
it's like, you know, cavalry, archery. The reason I say caveat is that if I was going to pick one thing, I think the Perry miniatures are absolutely amazing in the Lord of the Rings range. And it was at the Crystal Palace, Selwig, yeah, the War
South
Games
East
show.
London Wargamers, and it's their show.
Yeah.
Every October.
Yeah, it's in this big leisure centre, isn't it? Yeah. And they had a load of these miniatures on sale, and I just noticed that they were Perry miniatures. I had no idea that they did anything outside Lord of the Rings. And I mean, they had everything historical. I mean, a huge range. But I was instantly drawn to the Napoleonics because of Sharp.
Mm. Sure.
Yeah.
It was
So-
a cool factor.
And yeah, and so, you know, that is guns. For the cool factor. But I was looking at the rifle and I was like, this is so cool. So rather than buy it for myself, I bought it for a friend who I knew would really like it, for Christopher.
You gave them away.
Yeah, I bought them and
That's
then
kind of hurtful.
gave it to him.
Do you know what you should do?
What?
Buy me Nagash.
Buy you Nagas.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
So, are you saying that you'd be tempted to start a historical wargame?
No, but the way I played it is that, you know, here you go, Christopher, here, have these models, go paint them, then we can play with them. So I don't have to go through the hassle of having a huge backlog of another set of models, but...
Here's 20 plastic riflemen. Go and paint these, and then buy the rest of the 2 armies and learn a rule set.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
It's
the way to do it. But no, in all seriousness,
it's like giving a child a cigarette.
yeah, I told him about it, and he was really keen on the idea. He's mad on history, so, and especially Napoleon. He has about 10 books on Napoleon, so he just likes reading about it. So yeah, they're really cool, and you know, they're the same, kind of the same scale as Lord of the Rings. Now, they don't come with bases. I think you kind of put them on trays and use them as
Yeah, well, they do a lot
set.
of their stuff. It's quite generic, but they do a lot. They're kind of linked now with Warlord Games, aren't they?
Yeah, it's Warlord. So Christopher bought the rule book for Napoleonics. It's Warlord Games, and he read it.
Is that Black Powder?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Black Powder stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he read it through, and I think it's quite similar to War Master in that the generals
It's a great
have
game.
quite a heavy influence over what happens.
Well, Hail Caesar, which is their
Rome.
old, yeah,
Equivalent.
what's that? Like old days.
Old days.
Yeah, old days, like
History.
Roman and Byzantium and
Yeah.
kind of Egyptian, whereas their Hail Caesar rules were written by Rick Priestley,
Yeah.
who wrote Lord of the Rings
Yeah,
and
the
wrote
original.
War Master.
Yeah.
And I think it does use a similar, I've never played it, but it does use a similar kind of control system
Yeah.
to War Master.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting, you mentioned that, not long ago, about a year ago, I was on Warlord Games website staring at Hail Caesar thinking, should probably buy that starter box. And then, you know, I resisted that one
Yeah.
because I had nothing for it.
Yeah.
That's more insane than the Nagash stuff.
Yeah, there's something that I'll come back on that. But I was just gonna make a comment that, yeah, I mean the rule set's really cool and it sounds great, but I just had these visions of, and you can put them on 40mm bases and play with them as a skirmish game. And
Yeah.
everyone could have an attack and a shoot value. And I was just trying to essentially
modern.
make Lord of the Rings rules
What's-
for Napoleonic. So put them on 40mm basis. Play essentially Lord of the Rings. So you don't have to even learn a
40mm
new...
bases.
Sorry.
Like cavalry.
Sorry.
25.
25
Yeah.
and then obviously 40 for the cavalry. And just play like Lord of the Rings because you could make it the same game because it's such a great game.
It's been done for Wild West. I think it's called Legends of the Old West. Is the Lord of the Rings system?
Really?
Yeah, modded for Wild West.
Because I was going to come on to this because you didn't resist on one thing, did you?
The Dead Man's Hand. I didn't. I went to. It was at Selwig last
Yeah.
year.
The same thing.
Yeah, I saw this thing and I thought it was cool. I like the Old West, and the board looked amazing. And we
Yeah.
played a preview
we
game
played-
of it.
yeah,
and I really
we
liked
had
it.
a great game.
Yeah, I
didn't we?
really enjoyed it. It's called Dead Man's Hand. It's by Great Escape Games, and I basically got a big bundle of it for Christmas.
And I think the key thing with this is it's kind of self-contained. It's not
Yeah.
like you get a bit of an army and then build it all out. It's just you get these figures and you can play a game.
It reminded me a lot of Necromunda and Mordheim in that each force needs 5 to 10 guys.
Yeah.
You paint them up, and then you've got a 2x2 square with all these houses, and the scenery's so cool. If you've seen any of Jamie's vlogs where he made the carts,
Mm.
they are the carts from the Old West.
Yeah.
For that. And I got all the scenery, and I built it all but one building. So I've got like 6 of these old West houses, and I just haven't done anything with it since Christmas.
We've not played it
because I haven't painted the models.
Mm.
But I like that, and I don't regret doing it. And I was on their website again a while ago, and they've got so many new buildings. They've got these huge undertakers and stuff. So if you're interested in the Old West, go check it out. Great Escape Games. It's really cool. It's a really good game.
You had some cards with it as well, didn't you?
You have a deck of kind of playing cards
deck of playing
that
cards,
you use, which is very themey. That's Dead Man's Hand. Yeah, so.
And the scenario we played was something like someone was going to get hanged, and one player was the outlaw trying to rescue him.
All the scenarios are called scenes because they're based around classic films. So you have like scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, and you play them all out. It's really, really cool, and that I hope I will do something with because I've got the stuff to do it. So it's just the nature of this hobby, I think.
Yeah, and I think maybe if going full circle back onto if Lord of the Rings Hobbit did die down, then maybe there is more of a chance that you kind of once you've got through the backlog, think about another system to kind of get into as well.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely is. In the future, there won't, as we've talked about today, there won't be necessarily SPG in Games Workshop, but there will, because that's a licensing thing.
Yeah.
There will always be historical war games.
Yeah, exactly.
And other war games. So perhaps it is something for the future.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to get the book.
You're going to get the book.
And maybe have a game of fantasy.
Yeah.
Dig out my vampire counts.
I'd be up for it.
Yeah? Yeah. Well, maybe we should do that then. Maybe we should have a game of fantasy. Would you be interested in seeing a fantasy battle report?
But
10 years out of date.
I think
on the channel.
It could be quite nice because you'd be teaching me how to play it.
Yeah.
But maybe you couldn't do that on the camera.
Yeah. Who knows? Probably not. But yeah. So if any of those things do appeal, let us know if you'd be interested in seeing any of them.
Yeah.
And that I think is going to be it.
Yeah.
Because this is long. Sorry, I don't have a clue how long it is, but it feels like this might be about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I'm really sorry if this is very...
So sorry, but this is what we said we'd do. We're talking about things that kind of come up.
We talked about 3 points, and it went on for...
And we were answering some other points.
Yes, Jane. Okay.
So yeah, very sorry if it's too long, but hopefully you got a lot of painting done to it, like normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we hope you enjoyed week 2.
Yeah.
I hope you found the topics interesting. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, and let us know what you want us to talk about next week.
Yeah.
I think we've asked you a few questions in there. Well, a few things to comment on.
Absolutely.
So anything, just give us something to go on for next week.
Absolutely. So, as ever, don't forget to comment, like, share and subscribe.
Support your Hobbit hobby.
And happy strategy battle gaming.